In the early hours of a quiet night in Tehran, something happened that would send shockwaves across the world. Explosions lit up the sky above the Iranian capital. Air defense systems roared to life. Sirens echoed across the city. Within minutes, rumors began spreading across the internet. A powerful strike had just hit one of the most heavily guarded locations in Iran, and according to intelligence reports, the target was not a military base. It was a man considered by millions to be the most powerful figure in the Islamic Republic, Iran's supreme leader. For decades, he had shaped Iran's politics, guided its military strategy, and stood as the ultimate authority in the country. But on this night, everything changed, because the unthinkable had just happened. The leader of Iran may have been assassinated. This is the story of the night the supreme leader died, and how that moment pushed the Middle East closer to a war that could reshape the world. To understand why this moment mattered so much, we must first understand the man himself. For decades, Iran's political system has been unique. Unlike most countries where the president holds the ultimate authority, Iran's true power lies with one position: the supreme leader. This role sits at the very top of the Iranian political system. The supreme leader controls the military, oversees the judiciary, influences foreign policy, and has the final say on nearly every major decision in the country. Presidents come and go, but the supreme leader remains the ultimate authority. For years, that role was held by Ali Khamenei. Born in 1939 in the holy city of Mashhad, Khamenei grew up in a religious family and became deeply involved in Islamic political movements. During the 1970s, Iran was ruled by the Shah, a monarch backed by the United States. But many Iranians opposed his rule. Among them were religious revolutionaries who believed the country should be governed by Islamic principles. One of the most powerful leaders of this movement was Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. In 1979, their revolution succeeded. The Shah was overthrown, and Iran transformed into an Islamic republic. Years later, after Khomeini's death in 1989, Ali Khamenei was chosen to become the new supreme leader. At first, some doubted his authority, but over time he consolidated power and became one of the most influential figures in the Middle East. Under his leadership, Iran strengthened its military capabilities, expanded its regional influence, and continued its controversial nuclear program. To supporters, he was the guardian of the Islamic Revolution. To critics, he was the architect of a powerful and confrontational regime. And to Iran's enemies, he represented the center of the country's strategic power, which is exactly why he became one of the most protected leaders on earth. For decades, tensions between Iran, Israel, and the United States simmered just below the surface. These nations were locked in what analysts often called a shadow war. Instead of direct battles, they fought through covert operations, cyber attacks, intelligence missions, and proxy conflicts across the Middle East. Iran supported armed groups in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Israel carried out secret operations targeting Iranian military assets. And the United States imposed heavy economic sanctions aimed at weakening Iran's economy. But the situation began to change as Iran's nuclear program advanced. Western governments feared that Iran could eventually develop nuclear weapons. Iran insisted that its nuclear program was only for peaceful energy, but Israel viewed the program as an existential threat. Behind the scenes, intelligence agencies were already working on ways to slow Iran's progress. Some operations were subtle, others were far more dramatic. Over the years, mysterious explosions destroyed Iranian facilities. Nuclear scientists were assassinated, cyber attacks damaged nuclear equipment, and each time fingers quietly pointed toward Israel. Yet none of these operations had ever targeted Iran's highest leader. That line had never been crossed, until now. The tension finally exploded into open conflict when a series of military incidents triggered a rapid escalation. Missile strikes were exchanged, military bases were attacked, naval forces moved into strategic positions across the region. Suddenly, the Middle East was facing one of the most dangerous confrontations in decades. For Israel and the United States, the concern was clear. If the war expanded, Iran's leadership could coordinate massive retaliation through its regional allies. Groups across the Middle East had long-standing relationships with Tehran, and many of them possessed powerful weapons. Military planners began discussing a controversial strategy. What if removing Iran's top leadership could disrupt the country's command structure? What if eliminating the supreme leader could create confusion inside the Iranian government? Such an operation would be incredibly risky. It would almost certainly trigger outrage across the Muslim world, but it could also weaken Iran's ability to coordinate the war. Some strategists believed it might even force a political crisis inside the country. And so, deep inside classified war rooms, the unthinkable was discussed. A decapitation strike, an attack aimed directly at the head of Iran's leadership. Assassinating a world leader is one of the most complex operations imaginable. Iran's supreme leader lived under layers of protection. Elite Revolutionary Guard units guarded his residences, secret bunkers were built across Tehran, and his movements were carefully controlled to prevent any assassination attempts. But intelligence agencies had been studying Iran's leadership structure for years. Satellite surveillance, cyber intelligence, human informants. Gradually, a picture began to form. Analysts discovered patterns in the Supreme Leader's movements. Certain meetings occurred in predictable locations. Some underground facilities were used during times of crisis, and one particular command center had become especially important during the growing war. This location was believed to be a secure communication hub where top Iranian officials gathered during military emergencies. If intelligence was correct, the supreme leader himself might be there, which meant one thing. If a strike happened at the right moment, it could change everything.